All right, today we're going to walk through a journey that happens pretty much constantly, but almost entirely out of sight. We're going to use our source material to trace the path animals take from a farm to a slaughterhouse, sticking strictly to the processes described in the text. So let's dive in. For most of us, the story of our food really just starts at the grocery store. But what happens before it gets there? The material we're looking at today shines a light on a really critical and often invisible part of that process, that journey from the farm to the processing facility. So this is the big question our source material tries to answer. The text really breaks it down into two main parts, the transportation and then what actually happens inside the slaughterhouse. We're going to start right where the animal's final journey begins, on the road. The source material we're looking at, well, it doesn't mince words. It describes the transportation of animals to the slaughterhouse as a torturous process. And it points to a few key reasons for why it describes it that way, things that it says cause severe distress for the animals. This slide really breaks down those specific conditions. We're talking about animals being packed onto trucks so tightly that they can't even move. These trips can go on for hours, sometimes even days, and often without any food, water, or rest. And on top of all that, they're exposed to extreme heat or cold, which can lead to things like heat stroke or even freezing. And the scale here is, well, it's pretty staggering. The source states that millions of animals die every single year just from these transport conditions alone, before they even get to the slaughterhouse. That number really sets the stage for what comes next. So once they arrive at the slaughterhouse, the whole process becomes incredibly industrialized. The source portrays it as a system built for one thing: maximum efficiency. But it's a system that, it claims, has some inherent points where things can go wrong. Let's look at the examples given for chickens, pigs, and cattle. Okay, first up, chickens. The standard procedure described is that they're hung upside down by their legs on a moving line. This conveyor then pulls them through an electric water bath, which is designed to stun them, to make them unconscious before they're slaughtered. But here's the thing. The source claims this system fails a lot. It says the electric current is often just too low to properly stun the birds. And the result of that, while it's critical, it means many have their throats slit while they are still fully conscious. Some might even miss the blade entirely and are still alive when they reach the next stage, which is a scalding tank, where they can end up drowning. Now, let's talk about pigs. For them, a common stunning method described is using gas. They're lowered into a chamber that gets filled up with a high concentration of CO2. The source is very direct about the animal's reaction to this. It uses this quote right here, claiming that the experience of the gas stunning, well, it leads to panic attacks in them before they actually lose consciousness. And it's not just that initial panic. The source highlights another major risk. It says that sometimes the gas chamber is ventilated too soon. This can cause the animals to actually start waking up during the next step while they're being bled out. And finally, let's look at cattle. Because they're so large and have these thick skulls, stunning them effectively is a whole different kind of challenge. The text notes that the tools used for this, usually something called a captive bolt pistol, are just prone to failure. So what happens when it fails? The consequences, as laid out in the source, are severe. If the stunning device doesn't work on the first try, the animal might stay fully or at least partially conscious. The source reports this means they can feel the cut to their throat, and in some cases are even moved down the processing line and skinned while still alive. Okay, so after laying out all these specific examples, from the truck ride to the processing floor, the source material kind of zooms out. It moves from just describing the process to making a much bigger argument. It uses all this evidence to ask a really fundamental question about the entire industrial system itself. And that whole argument is wrapped up in this one concept: system inherent suffering. The idea here is that the things we've just talked about aren't isolated accidents or just one-off mistakes. Instead, the source is arguing that suffering is actually a built-in, unavoidable part of a system that's operating on such a massive industrial scale. And that leads directly to the text's main conclusion. Based on all of those documented failures, the source argues that a truly humane death is pretty much impossible to achieve on an industrial scale. The sheer speed and the sheer volume of the whole operation, it suggests, make a consistent, painless process unachievable. And that's where the source material leaves us, with this final, really challenging question. It changes the debate from how can we improve the system to asking whether a system of this size and speed can, by its very nature, ever actually be humane. It's definitely something to think about. Thanks for joining us for this explainer.